I'm your host, Dennis Horvitz, the David Letterman of the Hopelessly Damned. Dinosaurs ruled the Earth for almost 150 million years. In any case, dinosaurs apparently once trod upon what is now the Jersey Turnpike. And I just pity the poor bastards who were working the toll booths then. But you didn't, okay, never mind. In any case, our guest is Dr. J. Brent Bennington. He was the Associate Professor of Geology at Hofstra University. And he's going to speak to us today about dinosaurs, which is very special for me because it means that for once I won't be the only dinosaur in the program. But it's all right. This is volunteer, folks. And the topic is when dinosaurs ruled New York. And apparently, if most people don't think of New York or even the mid-Atlantic or Eastern Atlantic or New England area as having been a place where dinosaurs would have been, I guess because we associate them generally with tropical climates. And but 65 million years ago, just before the dinosaurs disappeared, the climate situation was a tad different. In any case, I'm not the one to be explaining all of this, and I would like to introduce our guest, Dr. J. Brent Bennington, please.
Sooner or later we get asked questions like this or something like this. Do you have an abbreviated answer to the claim that dinosaurs and human beings coexisted?
There isn't a single iota of evidence that human beings and dinosaurs ever came even close to coexisting.
Fortunately for the dinosaurs, they'd have been wiped out a lot sooner, I'm sure.
We would have eaten them. They probably tasted like chicken.
You know, that's a very interesting point because, you know, the claim for the Loch Ness Monster is this, and I'm thinking if such a creature ever existed, the people living in that area would have killed them and eaten them anyway.
It's what we do.
That's what we do best.
We move into an area and we eat everything.
Yeah,
We did it in Hawaii. Before humans arrived in Hawaii, the largest animals in the Hawaiian Islands were these enormous flightless geese. And there were no predators in the Hawaiian Islands because they're too far out in the ocean and mammals were never able to get out to the islands. So the islands were populated by reptiles and birds, very much like the Galapagos. Well, I saw a very interesting talk once by an archaeologist who worked on a dig in Hawaii, and he said, basically in the dig in this cave you find goose bones, the first shred of charcoal, and then the goose bones are gone. And he figures it took the Polynesians about one generation to eat all the geese. And you got to imagine, these guys cross the ocean in a canoe and they come up on shore, and what's waiting for them? Big fat geese that are like, hey, how you doing? Welcome to Hawaii.
You just basically walk up to and club to do.
What's for dinner? Goose. Yeah. So you can measure the rate at which radioactive atoms decay in a lab, and I mean, the half-life of uranium is uranium-238 is. It's got like a 4 billion year half-life. But you don't have to wait 4 billion years to see a uranium atom decay. If you've got a chunk of uranium, some proportion of those uranium atoms are going to decay at any given moment, right? So it's a stochastic thing. You can't predict exactly when a particular uranium atom is going to pop off and start, its cascade. But if you have 1 million of them, you can measure how many of those million uranium atoms are decaying over an interval of time, and that will tell you how long it will take half of them to decay or how long it will take all of them to decay. So physicists were measuring this in their labs back at the turn of the 20th century. So you have your egg timer, some mineral grain. It starts out with all the atoms are uranium atoms, and over time the uranium atoms drop into the bottom of the egg timer as they turn into lead atoms. And so you want to know how much time has gone by since a rock formed. You look and you see how much is left in the top versus what's in the bottom. How much uranium is there relative to lead? You measure that proportion. If you know the half-life, which you've measured in the laboratory, it's a simple calculation to come up with how much time has gone by. Really clever checks on the process too. Like there are 2 different isotopes of uranium. Each one has a different half-life, so it changes to lead at a different rate. And if you have minerals that have both isotopes of uranium, each isotope should give you the same answer for the age of the rock. And if anything has gone wrong, they will give you wildly different answers. So if you use 2 different isotopes to date the same rock and you get the same answer, it would be the most astonishing coincidence in the world if you were getting the same wrong answer twice, essentially. So that's one check on it. I mean, coal, oil, and natural gas. Coal comes from plants. Oil and natural gas come from algae, right? Not from dinosaurs. The only reason people think dinosaurs turn into fossil fuel is because of Sinclair, the oil company that had the green dinosaur on its sign. No, it's plant material that accumulates as peat and gets buried under other layers of sediment, becomes coal. Algal cells that sink down into the mud on the seafloor and get trapped in that mud without decaying, those algal cells cook down under pressure and turn into droplets of tar, which will break down under higher temperatures into crude oil, and eventually at high enough temperatures will crack down into methane, into natural gas. So algae and plants are what produce our fossil fuels. There's not enough animal biomass in the world to produce fossil fuel. It's plants that produce the most biomass.
Britain.
Bob Backer has said that.
He's kind of crazy, you know.
You started smiling as soon as I said the name.
Did you explain who that is?
Robert Bacher is a very well-known dinosaur paleontologist. He appears quite frequently in documentaries. He's the guy with the big bushy beard and the cowboy hat who jumps around and gets all excited about. He's brilliant in a lot of ways. I've spent some time with him and back in graduate school, and we brought him to Virginia Tech when I was a graduate student as a guest lecturer. He gave a 2-hour lecture on dinosaurs to an audience of people that ranged in age from 7 to 70, and nobody blinked for 2 hours. I mean, they were mesmerized. And then when it was over, he spent the next 2 hours. Any kid that would come up and answer a question about dinosaurs, he would draw him a very nice dinosaur and sign it. I mean, so the guy is really, he's a character, but he's pretty amazing. What's your question about him, Mike?
He has said that they probably became extinct because of microbes.
Yeah, that's the dumbest thing I've ever heard. Seriously, epidemics do not cause extinctions because species evolve rapidly, populations evolve rapidly to disease, because disease is the ultimate Darwinian selection pressure, okay? It kills most of you, but the ones that survive are now resistant to the disease, and those genes are passed on, and the next generation, it's not a big deal. I mean, you look at, diseases that have recently entered the human population. Syphilis, when it first makes it over to Europe, is tremendously virulent, and it kills people left and right. Now it's a nuisance, essentially. I mean, I just don't think, and dinosaurs existed all over the world. I don't see how you can have a global pandemic that's going to wipe out such a wide variety of species of dinosaurs. I don't know where he came up with that.
I was interested in the chart you brought up there, volcanic eruptions. Have you traced it, like the Tova eruption?
Well, these are not
really wiped out the human race.
right. Okay.
Was there eruptions that have been found 65.5 million years ago?
Well, at the end of the Cretaceous, there was a massive eruption event going on in India called the Deccan eruption event that created something like a 2-mile thick pile of lava flows that covers hundreds of thousands of square miles of India. And those lava flows, you can actually find the iridium layer in a layer of sedimentary material within the lava flows. So those lava flows started a couple 100,000 years before the end of the Cretaceous and continued through the end. So that's my point. Again, is that you had this very, very serious environmental event going on when dinosaurs went extinct that straddles the extinction. Maybe what happened was, you had one bad thing happening, and then the asteroid comes along, and that's not the main reason why dinosaurs go extinct, maybe, but again, it didn't help, and it may have been, maybe you get a really big mass extinction when you just have too many things going on that happen to overlap, that stress out the global biosphere to the point where a large number of species just can't persist anymore.
Yeah, gotcha.
So if you're finding dinosaurs in various continents on Earth, right?
Every continent.
In every continent, are there distinct differences between the ones that you found in Europe versus the ones that are in the United States? Because otherwise, I mean, if they evolved, wouldn't they have evolved over millions of years independently and have unique?
Sure. Yeah. Initially, in the Triassic, there's very little difference between dinosaurs around the globe, but that's because all the continents were connected.
Right.
By the end of the Mesozoic, by the end of the Cretaceous, the continents are getting pretty close to their modern positions. I mean, they've made most of the journey into their present positions, with a couple exceptions like India still attached to Africa. And there are tremendous differences in the Cretaceous between the dinosaurs we find in North America and the dinosaurs we find in South America. The biggest similarity is between Asian dinosaurs and North American dinosaurs, because those continents were still connected significantly. But South American dinosaurs are quite different from North American dinosaurs.
That's sort of ironclad proof that evolution's real. I mean,
we could spend 6 months talking about all of the ironclad proof that evolution is real.
I mean, that's an incredible.
There's the fossil record of evolution is just, it's stunning. It's magnificent. We just had a conference on Charles Darwin, a conference on Darwin at Hofstra in the spring in honor of his 200th birthday, and we had the judge come and speak who presided at the Kitzmiller versus Dover trial.
Judge Jones.
Judge Jones, yes. Wonderful man. And he, one of the things that he says is that the evidence that was presented, the witnesses who testified, basically, the witnesses for evolution, the scientists who came into his courtroom and explained why scientists accept evolution as a valid explanation for the diversity of life on Earth. He said that his biggest regret from that trial is not allowing TV cameras in the courtroom, because he said if everyone in the world could see the testimony that he saw, there would be no doubt. I mean, he was just blown away by the quality of scientific evidence supporting evolution.
And some of the witnesses for the school board actually lied.
Well, and that just got him mad. And you don't get federal judges mad. It's just a bad idea.
It's possible to have more than one terrible asteroid hit the Earth, or is there evidence that there are more than one iridium layer?
There was someone that proposed that there was more than one.
There's a woman named Gertie Keller at the U.S. Geological Survey who is convinced that there may have been a sequence of up to 3 major impacts within a relatively short period of time, within a few thousand years of each other, at the end of the Cretaceous. So this may have been a sort of a swarm of objects or something. She's got some interesting evidence. Other people argue against it. It's going to take some time to work that out, but it's an interesting possibility. She thinks that the big crater in the Yucatan is too early, that it doesn't actually come at the very end, and that there are some other impacts that came a little bit later than that.
But the Discovery Channel said it did.
Well, that's...
Just kidding.
If you want to, I almost hate to say it, but if you want to really kind of get the latest word on these things, go to Wikipedia.
Yeah.
Wikipedia has such a bad rap, but especially among academics. But man, I find that the scientific stuff on Wikipedia is wonderful. I mean, the people that update those sites are really, they're on top of what happened 2 days ago.
Yeah, it's starting to get good marks too. I mean, more and more. It's
it's just a good place to start.
Right, question over here.
Any other species coexisted with the dinosaurs?
Well, lots of things coexisted with the dinosaurs. I mean, if we sent you back in time to the age of dinosaurs, if we sent you back to the beginning of the age of dinosaurs, the world would have looked a little bit unfamiliar. But what evolves at the same with the dinosaurs? Frogs, lizards, snakes, modern-looking crocodiles. When crocodiles evolve before dinosaurs do, but the early crocodiles are running around on 2 legs or they're fully upright and they're very fast and agile, and they're not these big slow things that live in swamps. But by the by the Jurassic, that's what crocodiles look like. Birds evolve sometime towards the middle of the age of dinosaurs, if not earlier than that. The plant life in the Mesozoic, in the Jurassic, mostly conifers. You would have seen redwoods and cypress trees and trees that look like they're southern hemisphere type of cone tree called Oricariaceans. Norfolk Island pines that they sell at Christmas time in IKEA are these sort of prehistoric Jurassic trees. Flowering plants don't evolve till the beginning of the Cretaceous, and they very quickly take over the world. So if you went back in time towards the end of the Cretaceous to the New Jersey coastal plain, you would not notice anything wrong. You'd see a crocodile swim into the water, and you'd see some frogs hop away. You'd see birds circling around. You'd see things that probably look like seagulls. You'd see bald cypress trees. You'd see sassafras trees, sycamore trees. And you wouldn't really know anything was weird till that T-Rex started chasing you. And then you'd be like, well, this is not right.
No grass either. Grass.
Well, that's actually, we don't know. It turns out that some dinosaur coprolites, coprolite is fossil poop, some herbivore dinosaur coprolites, sauropod dinosaur coprolites, have yielded little tiny microscopic grains of quartz which are produced by grasses or by plants called phytoliths, and they've got some Jurassic phytoliths that look an awful lot like grass phytoliths. So we don't know.
So you can't say they weren't stoned, in other words.
Well, that's one of the theories that has been proposed, a long time ago, for why dinosaurs went extinct was the evolution of flowering plants introduced a lot of plants into the world that produce alkaloids, and that the dinosaurs started eating all these flowering plants and were tripping so hard that they,
What a way to go.
reproduced. Yeah, they were happy, I guess. But
Somebody hasn't asked
a silly idea.
yet. Somebody who hasn't asked a question yet. Yeah, Mason.
I have a question about how frequently you have these sorts of unexpected discoveries of treasure troves of fossil remains. And the reason I asked the question is I'd seen a story on the BBC News recently about a seafaring reptile. I think it was somewhere up in the Arctic.
Pliosaur, yeah.
Yeah. Would you
Pliosaurs.
comment on that briefly? But the main question is how often do you come across these?
Well, I don't know. I mean, how often do you find new and exciting things? Pretty often, I guess. And part of that is just that, every year there are more universities and maybe more people out looking for stuff. And countries that had a very poor scientific infrastructure in the past are, a lot of them now have a really good scientific infrastructure. So like China, for example. I mean, there's tremendous paleontology going on in China. The Chinese have some wonderful paleontologists, some brilliant dinosaur paleontologists, and they've got an awful lot of acreage of Mesozoic rock. And you just don't know what's going to come out of China, next week. I mean, South America is the same way. South America is a huge place for new discoveries. Africa will get there when Africa settles down. When Africa finally pulls out of its post-colonial nightmare, and you develop a research infrastructure, and people start poking around Africa, they're going to find some pretty amazing stuff. There was another part, before I get to you, there was another part to that question. The pliosaur. So BBC News and some of the news wires have carried a story of a really immense Mesozoic marine reptile called a pliosaur. A pliosaur is basically a killer whale, reptilian killer whale. Only the biggest pliosaurs had jaws that were 9 feet long, full of recurved teeth about that long, and they've got one. There's one up in British Columbia that the University of Calgary, I think, is excavating. That's bigger than a blue whale. These things were immense, and we don't know what was out there. I mean, we're going to keep finding things for a while.
As opposed to the plesiosaur, which is a different.
Well, the group plesiosaur includes pliosaurs and then plesiosaurs. So the plesiosauridae, I can't even remember the taxonomy, but the short-necked ones with big heads the killer whales are pliosaurs. The long, snaky-necked ones with the small fish-eating heads are plesiosaurs, but they're both grouped in the same group, which is the plesiosauria. They're marine reptiles that probably swam almost like penguins do by flying through the water. Yes, sir.
Gentlemen,
I'm bearish on dinosaur DNA. DNA is a very fragile molecule. It does not last long under the best of conditions. No lab has yet convincingly extracted dinosaur DNA from a fossil. We've been able to get DNA from younger fossils, and I mean, it's remarkable. We've sequenced the Neanderthal genome, and we've sequenced the mammoth genome. So we've got entire genomes for some fossil organisms that lived, just 10,000 years ago or so. But nobody's found any dinosaur material that has DNA in it. There's a woman at I think she's at Montana State named Mary Higby Schweitzer, who's got a T-Rex femur that when they cut it open, it had gunk inside of it, and she makes a pretty good case that gunk is the remnants of some collagen and there's some blood vessel material in there. So she's looking for evidence of protein that's lasted, which is a miracle in itself. But there's not going to be any DNA in there. And unfortunately, the belly of a mosquito would be the worst place in the world to look for DNA, because the digestive enzymes are going to snip it to pieces long before the mosquito gets trapped in amber. So if we're going to reconstruct dinosaurs from DNA, we're going to get the DNA from a chicken. We're going to get dinosaur DNA because it's still in there. It's just it's been turned off. Through in the evolution from feathered theropod dinosaurs to chickens, the genes for dinosaurness get switched off, and genes that for chickenness get duplicated and switched on. And so
I've heard it said that to be a paleontologist is to forever have your heart broken, because what you really want to do is find a live dinosaur.
Well, I don't know. That might take all the fun out of it.
What will be our legacy? Future paleontologists, will they find the carbon that was released in this year?
Oh, that's an interesting question. There's a wonderful book you should read. It's called The World Without Us, and they made a TV documentary about it too. And it's a book that ostensibly it answers the question: if humanity disappeared in an instant, if we just sort of magically made everyone go away, how long would it take nature to erase any trace of us? Right? How long would it take our cities to crumble? How long would it take our highways to disappear, et cetera, et cetera? But that's cool. But what's really interesting about that book is, to answer that question, you first have to inventory the impact that we've had on the planet. And for that, the book is fascinating. I mean, it goes through all of the ways that we have altered the material and the processes of the planet. And the chapter on plastics should be read by everyone, because plastics are forever. Plastics don't biodegrade. They just break into smaller and smaller pieces. And the oceans are now full of tiny little pieces of plastic that the plankton are feeding on and ingesting. And we don't really know what that does to plankton. And so, how long, the short answer to your question is, there'll be a layer of plastic. It'll be the plasticine.
And they'll dig up a Starbucksodon.
There are some a couple of geologists who've put forward the case that it's time to designate the beginning of a new geologic era called the Anthropocene, that comes after the Holocene. And you could make a good case for that, because we've probably made enough of an impact on the planet that our existence will show up in the fossil record, and a future paleontologist would say, hey, a bunch of things went away here. I see an extinction, and then there's all this plastic, and then,
What about bombs, atomic bombs?
Oh, well, if you do, if you do any kind of radiocarbon dating, one of the things you look for is, the present. If you do radiocarbon dating, the present is defined as 1960, because until 1960 there wasn't enough bomb bomb radiocarbon in the environment to make a difference. After 1960, there's too much noise. And there's all kinds of, you can also look for heavy metals. You can actually detect sort of the beginning of the 50s by a sudden spike in heavy metals in sediments. And one of my colleagues at Hofstra, Krista Farmer, just got a grant to do some sediment coring around the South Shore and look for evidence of past hurricanes. And to do this, we're going to have to date those sediments. So if we find a sand layer that represents a hurricane washover, we're going to radiocarbon date it and figure out how old it is. And one of the things we'll look for is the presence of heavy metals that will tell us that we're up into the 20th century. Yeah, so there are, lots of things you can think about that will show up in that.
We have time for one more. Go ahead.
I wanted to ask, so if we all got wiped out and there was no more life, would we regenerate?
If there were no more humans?
Yeah.
No, we'd be,
That'd be it?
yeah, we're done. Yeah, evolution doesn't make the same species twice. It's the odds of that happening are just too. Something else might come along that might do what we do, but probably not for a long time. But again, we don't know what
The
causes.
question was why
didn't
after
it-
150 million years didn't the dinosaurs become smart?
Why didn't they become smart?
They didn't have to be, they were so big.
Go ahead.
It's the wrong question.
Run with it.
What's wrong with it?
It's the wrong question. The right question is why freakishly did we get that smart?
Yeah.
Right.
We don't know. We don't understand why evolution. We don't know why intelligence evolved in humans. We don't know what the reason for it was. It must have. It obviously helped us reproduce, but exactly how and what were the circumstances that made that possible? Most organisms reproduce just fine without being terribly intelligent.
I'm